Today on Co-op for Two, a quick spoiler-free review of Profiler, The Ghosts of Brandonsbury. A small town, a haunted house, and a double homicide. Is this the cold case game you've been looking for? Let's find out. The Ghosts of Brandonsbury is part of a series called The Profiler, and two of the games have been translated into English. There's a larger set that have not yet been translated. They are available on Amazon for about $30 each. This one and the previous one missing in the Caribbean, which you can see a playthrough and review of on this channel. $30 is on the high side for a cold case game. However, nothing is destroyed. You can only play it once, but you could sell it, pass it along, trade it after you play it. There is some internet use here, not just for getting a solution and unlocking the case as you proceed, but also some extra evidence on the website that you can access as you go, but it's all done very well and it's not painful to use. Playtime here is about 2 hours. Our playthrough took us 5.5, so that's about right. It takes us longer to play it than it would in real life. You can watch our playthrough after you finish playing it yourself, and you'll see at the end of that a long spoiler-filled discussion. This review will be spoiler-free. And please do remember that I purchased this game myself. I have no relationship with any publisher. Okay, I've said this review is going to be spoiler-free, but I do want to show you the components to give you some idea of what you're getting here in the box. It's a cold case game. That means you're going to be basically looking through facsimile documents and evidence and trying to solve a mystery. Just going to show you what you would see as soon as you open the box. You could see more on the back cover and in the advertisements that I'm going to show you. But you've got 4 envelopes that are unlocked one at a time sequentially as you proceed through the game. It'll instruct you when to open which one, and each one will require you to answer some questions, sort of solve a little mini mystery before you can proceed. You've got basic instructions here. You've got sort of a welcome letter, a nice newspaper, only single-sided, lots of documents here single-sided, which feels a little bit like a missed opportunity. Autopsy, some social media, again single-sided. But some of the other things, a little brochure, maybe a little on the thin side to what we see in other of the best category of these cold case games. A little receipt. Here we have something more befitting a deluxe expensive cold case game, a nice map. But again, only single-sided really. Another little brochure, a statement here from a witness. So single-sided short documents, not the most generous. However, there's quite a lot here. There's a lot more in these envelopes to discover. Okay, let's talk about the pros here. The one that really sticks with me is how good and how engaging a story this game tells. There's a whole bunch of cold case games that offer sort of rich deductive experiences, but the stories are typical murder mystery. Here are your 5 suspects, figure out which one had the means, motive, and opportunity. This is a much more engaging, interesting story here. It's actually a couple little interwoven stories and a fun setting, a sort of supernatural tinged story with a haunted house, a small town of weird people. It is compelling. I did complain a little bit when looking through the evidence at the sort of quality of the evidence documents. I think there's a little bit of a missed opportunity here with some of them. All the single-sided stuff, the interviews and stuff are on the short and slim side, but there's a lot of it by the time you get through all these envelopes, and there are subtle details in some of them. Some of them, where the deduction is important, are well done. The internet in this game is also well handled. It's a common area where some of these cold case games trip up. Some of them require you to go to visit all these different websites and spend a lot of time, wasted time, hunting for stuff you never find. Here, it's got its own little website. Areas are locked off. It's occasionally a little confusing how to move around the website, but in general, it's nice and focused. So when you unlock something new, you can go to it and see the evidence, except for one little exception I'll talk about. In the midst of this very rich and engaging story, there are lots of little details for you to figure out that will tax your ability to understand everything. There are some real aha moments here. This is one of these games that will benefit from having someone else to discuss theories with. The staging into acts keeps the whole game moving into a story. It does feel like you're sort of watching a movie that unfolds. It's not static. It doesn't stay in one place. You don't just get all the documents dumped on you. It'll sort of progress and it'll hold your hand and take you through. And while rewarding sort of deep understanding of everything that's going on as you play. Now let's talk about some cons. The counterpart to having this game that really leads you through a story with a nice arc and pace is that by the time you get to the end, you will sort of understand the main mystery. You can't get to the end without understanding the main mystery. And occasionally moving through these multiple steps feels a little bit arbitrary. Sometimes you'll unlock the next envelope just by figuring out the answer to a simple textual question here. And you'll be like, why was that gated based on that? I mean, it serves to keep the game paced well, but sometimes it feels a little arbitrary. However, this is, first and foremost, a deduction game. You really will have to figure out lots of little subtle details, and it wouldn't surprise me if most groups don't miss some of the details here. There are a couple of puzzles. One in particular I found very frustrating and had some complaints about. This might be a case where after you play through the game, you may want to check out our playthrough on the channel. See if you got stuck in the same place we got stuck, and you can watch me get angry and my discussion of what was wrong with it. However, I will say I do think you should stick with it. This is probably one of these games where there are hints available online on the website. I think you should try to avoid them if you can. There are some puzzles in some of these games that are frustrating and weren't designed in the optimal way, from my opinion, and which I would suggest in some cases, in some games, I would suggest if you sit there for 10 hours, you're never going to figure it out. You might as well get the hint. That's not the case here. There's one or two places you could get frustrated, but I do think you'd be better off sticking with it and avoiding the hints. Final thoughts here. I would rate this a 9 of 10. And the reason it's getting such a high rating for me is the quality of the story. Now, I don't want to set your expectations too high. That can easily ruin a game. So you shouldn't go into this expecting to have your mind blown here or to see some amazing twist at the end. But it is a solid, engaging story, different than most of the cold cases we play, and for that, for me, for someone who loves the narrative along with the deductive elements, that makes a big difference. But it's not just the story, it's that there are a lot of subtle little details to figure out. And my advice here for you, if you do decide to play it, is don't let the final questions of solving the case be the end all for you. You will be able to answer questions before you have figured everything out. And I would advise you to find someone else to play with, and don't proceed to the end until you really understand the significance of each little bit of evidence and you found all the little subtle connections you can, and challenge yourself to figure out how all of the evidence and how all of the clues make sense. If you like this video, I'd like to hear about it. Let me know if you've played other games in this series. Which one is your favorite? I think I would rank this one above Missing in the Caribbean. Both good games, but the story here was a little more enjoyable for me. I'll see you on the next video.